Welcome everybody to episode 4 of Aces Full of Food. We have a doozy here. We have gone international. We are live with Dara O'Kearney. All right. This guy is an absolute boss in poker. He's a poker pro coach, sponsored by Unibet, cardschat, sharemypair. He has a blog, an award-winning podcast called The Chip Race. He has 3 best-selling books, which I own 2 of them actually, and they're really good. Endgame Strategy, PKO Poker Strategy, and Poker Satellite Strategy. Um, Dara, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this moment with me.
Not at all, Leo. Delighted to be here. This is an interesting concept, so it should be a lot of fun.
Definitely. So we're going to get the boring stuff out of the way. Let's talk a little bit about the poker, how you got started, how it all translated from, I know you're a runner. Talk to us about that. Give us the backstory, please.
Yeah, basically, ever since I was a kid, I've always done sort of something competitively. When I was a kid, I was not a very athletic kid, so competitive tended to be strategy games. So I played chess at a pretty high level. I played backgammon at a high level. I played bridge at a very high level as well. So there was always something that I was kind of interested in and I was competing in. And it tended to follow the same pattern of I would get obsessed with something, I would play and study it until I pretty much plateaued and reached as good as I was going to get. Like I was never going to be a chess grandmaster. And once I realized that, I kind of lost interest in chess and it was on to the next thing. As I got a bit older, I started doing more physical stuff and actually discovered that I had something of a talent for distance running. I ran marathons through my 30s. And then in my late 30s, I discovered I was actually even better at the much longer stuff, everything longer than a marathon, which is referred to as an ultra marathon or ultra running. So I literally won my first ultra marathon in New York in my late 30s. I had a couple of years as a very successful ultra runner representing my country, which was a huge shock to me. And the idea, I think, for any of my classmates when I was growing up that I would ever represent Ireland in anything physical would have been just hilarious because I was literally the school nerd.
That's hilarious. Imagine going back to your high school reunion, telling them, "Hey guys, I'm an ultra marathon winner." That is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because I even remember on my last day in school, my best friend Michael, he was a great guy, and he was like, I had done very well in my final year exams, and I was going off to college, and he kind of said, you can achieve anything you want to in life. And then he added, except obviously anything physical, anything to do with sports.
That is so crazy.
And of course, most people would just accept that. But I was like, okay, why not sports? And maybe I should try and do something in sports. So I was very happy as an ultra runner. And then in my early 40s, I kind of realized, well, this isn't going to last forever because of my age. So I need to find something else that I can do competitively. And I just saw poker on TV one night, and there was like a lot of people of different ages, shapes, sizes. And I thought, well, this seems to be something where the physical doesn't matter too much, or even the age. So maybe if I apply myself to poker, learn it, maybe by the time my running career winds down, I'll be able to play poker at a fairly high level. So it was kind of a long-term plan. I was planning to sort of learn it through my 40s, and maybe by the age of 50, I'd be good enough to play at a high level. That was just the very basic early plan. But first of all, the running finished much quicker than I expected. My running career fizzled out in my early to mid 40s. But I got more and more obsessed with poker to the point that I was pretty much just thinking about poker almost every waking minute and hour, and grinding a lot online. And within a year of learning the game, I was already sort of not just playing a lot, but I was actually making more money from playing online than I was from my main job. So it just seemed like the natural thing to accelerate on that front. And I was a full-time professional within a year of actually learning the game. My brother taught me the basic rules and strategy. He had been playing semi-professionally before me. But yeah, I mean, I'm a very obsessive personality, it's fair to say. So as soon as I got interested in poker, it was like, buy all the books, play all the hours, talk to everybody you can about strategy. Poker was obviously very soft back then as well. There wasn't a great deal of good content out there. Definitely. So that made the games easier to beat. In a sense, it was easier. In a sense, it was harder. It was easier in the sense that people were just generally worse. So if you had any sort of basic understanding of poker, you could do very well right from the start, like I did. But on the other hand, there was almost no good content out there, so you kind of had to figure everything out by trial and error, or by finding the right people.
Also, you talked about you had a job. What was your job before you went full time into poker? You said you were making more money. What was that job?
Yeah, basically, my educational background was I got a degree in electronic engineering from University College Dublin, but I never actually worked as an electronic engineer. In my final year in college, I did a project to develop a piece of software, a piece of computer-aided design software, and I got very interested in IT and software. So I went directly into the software industry, initially as a coder. And then
that's awesome.
Later on, I sort of branched out into general consultancy. By my mid-20s, I had my own consultancy company, and I was taking on sort of projects all over the world for IT companies, traveling quite a bit, had expertise in a lot of different areas. And that was sort of the job for the next 15 years until poker happened.
Awesome. So you said you started pretty much with success, not right off the bat, but you have 3 million in online earnings, and you have over 1.1 million in live earnings. I mean, that's for the period of time that you've played. I mean, that shows so much how much work you've put in, and do you test the work you've put into all the studying to where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I should say that those online winnings don't reflect the fact that I was a sit and go grinder for years, and they're obviously not tracked in those. And I also specialized in satellites for a lot of years, and was a very profitable satellite player. So actually, my online winnings are a good bit more if you tracked everything across the board. I was very lucky in the sense that I was a winning player right from the start. I never really had that period where I had I was a losing player, and I had doubts about whether I could make it or not. The first couple of years were actually pretty easy. I ran very well. I mean, it has to be said. Like, I literally won the first big live tournament that I entered.
I just saw that.
Luckier than that. So, and online, I clearly ran above expectation too. I think maybe 2 years into my career, I had my first sort of correctional downswing, and I was like, oh wow, poker can actually be tough. You don't just win all the time. But like, I think for my first 2 years, I don't ever remember any significant downswing, any significant losing period. The only thing I do remember is the first time I went to Vegas. I had a losing trip, and that was kind of even a shock in itself. It was like, oh wow, you can actually lose money playing poker. That never occurred to me. But yeah, I think I was just phenomenally lucky. I did obviously put a lot of time and effort into it, and I also think the sort of background I had in other games helped as well. I knew how to go about studying a new game, how to go about getting better, and just sort of the general strategic approach of knowing that in a game like poker, strategy is the important thing to focus on. You shouldn't really focus on variance or luck or any of that stuff. That will all correct itself in the long term. But really, so long as you keep improving your strategy, keep working, your outcomes will improve.
Awesome. So you're doing well. You're kicking some butt. When did Dara O'Kearney become sponsored Unibet Pro? Sponsored? How did that take shape? And when did that transpire? What kind of took you over to the next level in poker?
Yeah, it was kind of a gradual thing. Well, actually, I mean, I guess within purely an Irish context, I sort of made a very big splash very quickly, like literally winning my first live tournament, which was one of the biggest tournaments in Ireland that year. So
it was a 1,500 European deep stack, and it was for 47.2 euros.
That's right, yeah. And it was so it was kind of like, where did this guy come from, and how come we've never heard of him? So right from the start, I sort of had a profile. I think I was also the first Irish poker player on Twitter, so I kind of had an early understanding of how important that was going to be in terms of just having a social media presence, making people interested in you, getting people to follow along with your story. So right from the start, I was using social media and using it exclusively just for poker. Like, I wasn't talking about my dog or anything else. It was literally just my poker. I didn't see it as my social life. This is just how I communicate with the poker world. so because of that, I think I built up quite a big profile very, very quickly in Ireland. And I think probably at the start of my third year, I was already approached by an Irish online site with a view to them sponsoring me. Their name, they were Bruce Poker. They were a cake, a skin on cake.
Okay, old school name drop. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah, definitely.
now defunct cake, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I was basically their pro until cake went under. And then about a few months later, I was approached by another Irish site called Irish Eyes, and same deal. They wanted a high profile within an Irish context, Irish player who was known to play online, but also played live. So, would garner a bit of attention and had a social media presence. Social media was becoming more and more important. And actually at the first Irish Poker Awards, I won best social media for a poker player. So that kind of naturally put me in that position. So I was with Irish Eyes, I think, for another 18 months, maybe 2 years. And then the network that they were on, Interaction, they also went under, unfortunately. So that was the end of Irish Eyes. There was a couple of years then where I basically wasn't sponsored. And then around 2017, I wrote a very critical blog of Poker Stars, which kind of went viral. And one of the people who contacted me afterwards were the Unibet people, saying, we read your blog on what stars are doing wrong as far as promoting live poker to recreational players. We agree with all of your ideas, and that's very much what we want to implement. So would you be interested in joining us as an ambassador? So signed up in 2017 with Unibet, and I've been with them ever since.
That is so cool. Did you ever think that when you started playing these satellites and grinding, did you ever think that it would lead to this?
No, I never did. To be honest, I thought this is just going to be something I do. It's like a game I play at home. I played chess, I played bridge, and they're very niche worlds. And you just go out and you play competitions, and you hope to do well, and you come back, and that's all there is to it. But poker has this whole other dimension to it, where if you build up a profile, you can get recognition. You can get these other opportunities. Most of my money has, over the course of my career, has come from playing online. So it's never been the case that I chased after it purely for the money. But it was always interesting to me. Like, I'm a very social person anyway, so it's a kind of a natural fit for me to represent a site, go to live events, talk to people there about the site and what we're doing and all that stuff. So it all sort of just came as a natural extension. Now it's taken a bigger part in my life the last few years, because the whole model of ambassador in the industry has changed. Like, when I started, the idea was you win a big tournament, somebody slaps a patch on you, and then you represent them, and you probably don't win another big tournament, and then after a year they go, well, this guy hasn't done anything recently, and they get the latest winner in. 5-6 years ago, whenever it was, the model kind of changed to, well, people who are actually active on social media, people who have a blog, people who have a vlog, people who have a podcast, whatever. So the whole content creation model for ambassador became important, and I was doing a lot of that stuff anyway. Like, I had my podcast with David Lappin. I had my blog since the start of my career. I'd always done quite a lot of written content for strategy sites, etc. So that was just kind of a natural fit for me. But yeah, certainly I never imagined this is how it would end up. I do remember saying to my wife at the start, she said, like, when I told her I think I'm going to go concentrate on poker, she said, well, what are the benefits of that? And I said, well, the main benefits are the things I hated at the end about my old job was that I had to travel so much, and I had to spend most of the time when I was at home sitting in front of a computer. So I said, there'll be less traveling, and I'll be sitting in front of a computer less. And that really didn't work out.
No, that did it. It's funny because I remember one time this is the fanboy moment. I'm sitting at home and I got a follow from you after I followed you and you followed back, and I was like, wait a minute, this guy's I thought someone's trolling me. Someone made a fake account. I was like, I knew about you because I read all your other stuff, and I kept up with you with all your blog. You're very interesting, man. Like, and doing my research for this podcast, I went back and I started reading some of your old stuff. I was like, yeah, this is why I followed him. And then that one day you followed me back, and I was like, all right, this now I feel I've made it. And I was back then when I didn't, but it was a fanboy moment for sure for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice to hear. Like, I'm never going to be the most famous poker player in the world. I'm never going to be Daniel Negreanu or Phil Hellmuth. But one thing I have tried to do from the start of my career is to interact as much as possible with people who show any interest. So, when people send me messages on Twitter, I do pretty much respond to them all when or on anything, because I think if somebody takes the trouble to sort of show interest, the least you can do is engage with them. And I think that's I know from talking to Unibet that was one of the things that attracted them too as well. They said, like, okay, you have a fraction of the followers of a Negreanu or a Hellmuth or whoever, but you do actually interact with your followers, so they feel a much closer connection to you.
And you definitely do, and it means a lot. I mean, like I told you before we went, like, I'm a small fish in a big pond, and for you to come on and take the time out of I know you have a busy schedule, you're a poker coach, all that good stuff. It means so much to me, and you've impacted me very much, and I really appreciate it. My wife too. My wife was very excited after I told her you were coming on, and I explained to her and all that other cool stuff. So definitely.
Great. Thank you.
And congrats on your 50th episode. You just had it for your podcast, correct?
I think we had our 100th not so long ago.
100th. I mean, I'm sorry, 100th.
Our 100th. Yeah, we made a big splash for our 100th because, well, for starters, I'm not sure we ever thought we were going to get to 100, because we're not as prolific as most people. We put out about 18 shows a year, so. We made a big splash. We got Doug Polk on as the lead guest, and we got a very good, a wonderful lady who's a perfect representative of Irish poker called Annette Carroll on as well. We were very happy with that episode and the reaction to it. The podcast has been a labor of love, and at different points, the challenges have been different. At the start, as you know, the challenge is just getting people to come on your podcast.
Oh yeah.
When nobody knows who you are, and for the first year we were doing it, we were just doing it in Ireland, so we pretty much only had Irish guests, and that made it easy in the sense that, like, every Irish person wanted to go on the Irish Poker podcast. So there was no real problem. But when we came back with Unibet, they were like, well, first of all, we're not even licensed in Ireland, so Irish players can't sign up to Unibet. That's no longer true, but it was true at the time. So you guys are going to have to be a bit more global than that, and you're going to have to get going. So we were literally going out and trying to get our friends from overseas to come on the podcast. But it was difficult because, they look at the guest list and they go, that's a bunch of people I've never heard of.
It's fun. It's a good dynamic. It's kind of like, you have to put yourself out there without putting yourself out there, and kind of throwing your name, and it's interesting, and I've really enjoyed doing it, and it's becoming. I talked about it forever, and then it's just like, all right, let me keep going, and finally I just threw myself out there and said, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So fair play. The hardest part is that initial sort of like leap of faith that you're going to go out there and try and do it and try and get people.
Definitely. So we have a question real quick from Jimmy Bluffett. He says, can you ask Dara about Steve O'Dyer and what he's done for Irish poker? And he recently had a win. And are you all close?
Yeah, Steve's great for Irish poker. Obviously, Steve grew up in America and, Irish American. But post Black Friday, he moved to Ireland. And I think he'd say himself that the reason for that was obviously just so that he could go on playing online. There was no great further thought than that. Ireland is one of the better places in the world to play online poker for a number of reasons. First of all, you can play on pretty much all the international sites. Second of all, there's no taxation. We don't tax poker players in Ireland. So
awesome.
It was already the case that some foreign players, some European players were moving to Ireland, making it their base. So natural place for Steve to come, but he enjoyed it so much that he's basically fully integrated now. You see Steve turning up at small tournaments in Ireland just because he enjoys the experience of playing live poker in Ireland, which I think is a unique experience in the world. The only other place I can think of maybe that's comparable is Australia, where there's also an incredibly friendly, open attitude to poker. So Steve clearly enjoys being in Ireland. He lives in Ireland now. He's become an Irish citizen. So he has fully integrated, but he's made a big splash because he won the Irish Open, which is the oldest poker tournament in Europe. one of the most prestigious, but of particular importance to Irish people. If you ask most Irish players which they would rather win, the Irish Open or the World Series main event, they would say the Irish Open, because it means so much to the Irish poker community to win that tournament.
That's awesome.
And Steve prioritized it and really, really wanted to win it, and was very aware of the sort of history of it and why it was important to Irish people. And we actually had him on our most recent podcast, and he talked about that, how it actually meant a lot to him. Now, his performance was absolutely phenomenal. On the final table, he basically just crushed it. He knocked every single player out, and just ran over the final table. And it was a very high quality final table. So it wasn't a case of it was just Steve knocking out 8 donkeys. It was a genuinely crushing performance. I was lucky enough to do commentary on that for much of the second last day and the last day, and it was an absolute privilege to watch somebody so good, somebody as elite as Steve, but really focusing and doing everything he could to win this tournament. Which, let's face it, the 1K buy-in is small potatoes to somebody who's won 35 million or whatever he's won. But he really went after it, and I think Ireland has always punched above its weight in poker, because, well, there's a lot of players here for the size of the country. Like, most people don't realize we only have a population of about 5 million, which would make us a pretty small state in the US, and yet we produce lots of top world class poker players. And for someone like Steve to come and integrate and be seen as part of that, obviously that also elevates Irish poker.
Where do you see Irish poker right now? Are y'all booming? Do you feel like it's in a good spot where it's going to continue to grow and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a couple of things going on. When I started playing poker, there were very, very few online professionals in Ireland. In fact, I think at the start there was probably only 3 or 4, and that number gradually increased. And now if I had to guess, I'd say the number is in the 3 digits. It's at least 100.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So there's a lot of guys out there who played a lot online but haven't really played much live yet. But now with live poker coming back, there's a real demand for a sort of a pent up demand. Those guys want to get out. Guys like Alex Kulev, who crushed online for years, but hadn't really played much live, went to the World Series last November because the travel restrictions were lifted literally just in time, got heads up for a bracelet with a massive chip lead against Leo Margetts, and unfortunately ran very badly, but Leo won the bracelet. But like Alex is just at the start of his career. He's in his early 20s. He's a guy who's going to go to the WSOP this year, I think, and crush, and he's going to just crush live poker in general. There are other guys like Frank Lillis. Like, Frank is ranked top 20 in the world on pocket fives, but has played almost nothing live, so people don't really realize yet how good this guy is. He went out on the second last table of the Irish Open, and I was really hoping he was going to make the final table, because it would have sort of been his announcement on the world stage. But guys like Frank and Alex, they're going to come out and they're going to start getting results. So there's a core of really, really good young players who are going to break out. But in addition to that, there's just sort of, for our size of population, there's a huge interest in poker. A lot of recreational players, a lot of very smart recreational players as well. Guys who, even though they're recreational, are capable of getting good results. Population of 5 million, but we had over 2,000 runners in the Irish Open. So for a country of 5 million to produce that many into the national championship is pretty remarkable. It was also obvious at the Irish Open just how desperate people were to get out again. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, we've had a pretty severe lockdown here. We had 18 months with no live poker.
Wow, that's incredible. It's crazy.
Yeah, and people were literally locked in their house. Like, I left my house once in that 18-month period, and that was for a funeral. So there was very little even socialization. So, and Irish people are very, very social anyway. Live poker for us is a very social experience, and there's just a huge pent-up demand now. There's so much live poker coming up in the next few weeks and months, and I think all the events are going to break records.
It's so good to see, and I definitely want to make a trip out there. I've always been a fan. First of all, the food. I mean, we'll dig into that here soon. But just in general, the culture and everything about it. I definitely, me and the wife, want to make it out there and play some poker for sure. Can you talk to us a little about your coaching and stuff like? I know you're a great student of the game, and I also know I've heard that you are amazing at coaching. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the coaching thing kind of happened by accident, I guess. I mean, I was always big into studying the game, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I ascended the ranks fairly quickly, and also why I've lasted longer than most players. A lot of players shine bright for a couple of years and then they sort of fade away because they stop working. I've never really lost the desire to keep studying. For me, poker is like a giant puzzle that I'm trying to figure out, and I know I'm always going to just be scratching the surface of it. So there's always something to investigate. To be honest, I was never really directly interested in coaching myself. I just thought, well, I just want to study for myself. I don't see why I should teach other people to play. But
Yeah, for sure.
it kind of happened by accident because I was involved in a staking group for a while that I set up. We had no official title, but we were unofficially called the Firm, and it was a bunch of Irish poker players who were staking, mostly other Irish poker players, but a few non-Irish as well. And once we'd been doing that for a while, we kind of realized, okay, it's not just enough to start staking people. You actually have to coach them as well and try and make them better. We had a very naive belief that because the four of us who were involved were all fairly big online winners, that it was very easy and that anybody could do it. You just had to give them enough money and off they went. Quickly found out that wasn't the case, that you had to actually coach them. So we started doing these coaching sessions, and I mean, I think I was a pretty awful coach at the start, actually. I think I was probably the worst of the four of us, but by some distance. David Lappin, the guy I do the podcast with, had done some coaching for a sit and go stable before. He was very well polished. Dara Davey, the first player I ever staked, who was now involved as a staker, he was a good coach too, and so was Jason. But there was a kind of a running joke in our group that when I, as one of our guys would ask us about a hand, and the three guys would give their opinions, and they'd all be very well thought out, and then they'd ask me, and I would just go, "Well, it depends," which is probably a good answer to every poker question, but not particularly helpful if you're trying to teach somebody. But I think what happened then was around the middle of the last decade, so 2014, 2015, whenever the solvers arrived on the scene. And I was literally the first one in our group who just really seized onto the solvers, got absolutely fascinated by the solvers, and put in a huge amount of work with them. To the point that I remembered one tournament, I'd already been working with PO for months and months. And some of the guys were asking about a hand, and I said, oh, I'll put that in PO later. And they were all looking at it going like, what's this PO you're talking about? So I was a very early adopter of solvers. I absolutely loved the fact that you could get a definitive answer out of them. The thing which used to frustrate me when we did the coaching sessions is, a student would have a spot, David would have one opinion, Dara would have another opinion, Jason would have a third opinion. I would say it depends. And the student would then have to decide which of those people they believed. But once the solvers came along, we could say, okay, well, let's agree what the ranges are. Let's agree what the sensible bet sizes are. Let's program in all the variables. And now we will get exact output. There's no arguing with this. There's not like, no, the computer's got this wrong. We might have got the assumptions wrong, but this is a definitive answer. So I think part of the reason why I was maybe not that motivated as a coach is I just didn't enjoy the argument process. Someone like David loves arguing. So he would love arguing his point of view against Dara, and the two of them would go at it. And I just saw this as pointless. I was like, look, guys, we just want the right answer. We don't want to see who's the best debater here. So when PO came along and I was able to say, okay, it turns out you're both wrong, actually, and this is what PO says, that was a great moment. And that sort of motivated me to work even more with the solvers. And then when people came to me for coaching, I never really took the approach of like, I'm going to teach you poker. It was like, I'm going to teach you how to learn poker. I'm going to teach you everything I know about the solvers. I'm going to show you how to use them sensibly. I'm going to show you how to interpret the data, which I think is probably the most important thing. It's not a matter of just running the same spots over and over again and trying to memorize grids and charts and solutions. It's noticing patterns and heuristics that you can use in game. And I think that sort of played into my own natural talent more so than the let's debate whether it's better to shove 12 big blinds on the button with ace 4 or to raise fold it. And I think probably my background as an engineer and in IT also fed into that. I was very comfortable with all the software. I was very comfortable with the idea that you you program in the variables, and then you get the computer to actually produce a solution.
Definitely. So PO, for those of you that are watching, I know some of you don't know what that is. It's a solver that allows you to it compresses the information within the hand, and it'll give you a approximate how to play the best way to maximize your money in that situation. Correct, Dara? That's I'm not a big solver guy. I just started getting into it.
Yeah, that's absolutely it, and that's most solvers. You program in your assumptions, you program in what you think the likely strategies are, and then the computer solves for, if everybody's playing as well as they can, this is the best strategy you can follow.
Definitely. I just got into GTO Wizard and Odin. I just started using it. It's so crazy how much I needed to learn after I started using that stuff. It was just, I was mind blowing. But yeah, it was great stuff. All right. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. This is why we're here. This is why the people are tuning in. They want to talk about the food, the good stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about this all day today, and to be honest, I was asking, what am I even going to say? Because, I mean, well, first of all, let me say I grew up in a traditional Irish household where food was not seen as really. It was just food. It was just what you ate to give you energy. There was no great art or culture into it. If you go all over the world, you'll see French restaurants, you'll see Italian restaurants, you'll see Thai restaurants, etc., etc. You won't see an Irish restaurant. That's not a thing, because food isn't a massive part of our culture. We have a very basic functional approach to food, which is you eat healthy food, you live a healthy life, and that's kind of it. And my mother did not prioritize food at all, and she not to speak ill of her, but she definitely wasn't a very good cook. We ate almost entirely processed food out of cans, and she was the kind of woman who would prefer to buy baked beans in a can rather than fresh vegetables. So that's kind of what the way we grew up, and never really thought of food as something all that important. Then in my early 20s, I married a French woman. Now, the French come at things from a very different perspective. Food is really, really important, and she's a sensational cook. So suddenly, it was a real head spinner for me. It was like, wow, food can actually be amazing.
So, are you a cook, or does the wife do all the cooking?
Oh, I mean, me being a cook would like being married to Leonardo da Vinci and insisting on doing the family portrait. Like she is she's so good. She's the best cook I've ever met. And I would include professional cooks in that.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, she's just sensationally good. So yeah, the idea of me even going into the kitchen saying, okay, I'm gonna do it now would be just, yeah, that wouldn't seem right.
So your birthday, what are you asking her to cook you for your birthday? Your favorite dish? What's your go-to?
Well, I usually ask her to surprise me, because she has such a wide array. Like, she doesn't just do French food; she does Italian food as well. She lived in Italy for years.
No, I love it.
And she's actually, she can cook right across the board. My tastes, I guess, are actually pretty simple, and I think a lot of that came from when I was a runner as well. When I was a runner, the main focus was just to eat healthily, and to eat foods that were easily tolerated, because I ran 24-hour races, and in a 24-hour race you have to eat while you run. In fact, you have to eat 20,000 calories in the 24 hours, which is about what a normal person eats in a week. So if you're eating really, really fancy food, that just doesn't work.
Hold on, you ran for 24 hours?
Yeah, I was actually at one time the Irish national 24-hour record holder in my first 24-hour race. That was the longest distance I ever ran. But
oh my mind is blown right now. What's going on? I'm tired just hearing you say it.
Yeah, it kind of just grew out of the well, first of all, the marathon running, and then at the end of my 30s, I decided, okay, well, I'm too old to be a marathon runner now. My times are getting slower, and it's just going to be depressing if I run every year and I'm just a little bit slower. But while I'm fit, I'll go and try and run a longer race, because I kind of like the idea of that. So I went off to run the New York Ultra Marathon, which is basically 1.5 marathons. And that's in Central Park. So it was a nice place to run, nice city to be in, etc. But I ended up winning that race, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a good ultra runner then. So maybe I should do a bit more of this. I I was selected to run a 100-kilometer race for Ireland then on the back of that win, and then they asked me to run at the World 24-hour Championships. So I kind of just got shooed into that very quickly, without really thinking too much about it. In fact, I remember when they came to me and said, do you want to run the World 24-hour Championships? We have 3 really good guys, and we just need a 4th guy to make up the team. And I went to my coach and I was like, this sounds crazy, like running for 24 hours. The longest I've ever run for is 6 hours. And he said, well, to be honest, you can do it. It's mostly a mental thing rather than a physical thing. If you can mentally force yourself to keep running for 24 hours, you'll be able to do it based on all the training you've done down the years for the other type of running. So I went into it completely, like not really knowing what to expect. And I mean, to make matters worse, it was run in Canada in July, which is pretty warm. It was like
humidity and
the humidity. Yeah, the humidity was the killer. That was the thing. Like people said to me, when I say the temperature, they say, okay, well that's warm, but it's not super warm. But I was like, yeah, but it was like 90% humidity. Which is so different from Vegas. Like I've run in Vegas in summer, and it's a lot easier than running in Canadian summer. I can tell you.
I'm sweating just listening to you speak right now, Dara. I'm over here. I have to go in on the treadmill now. If you can run for 24 hours, I can go walk for 30 minutes on the treadmill. So right now, okay. So let's get back. So you said you had to eat 20,000 calories in 24. What were those meals? What would you say?
Well, this is the thing. So you can't like just sit down and have a really big meal. That's what you basically have to do is keep eating for the whole 24 hours. So typically 24-hour races are done in small loops of 1 or 2 kilometers, about a mile, say. And there's a food section on each lap where you can eat any food you want, fruit, pasta, bread, vegetables, meat, etc., etc. Anything you want. And from talking to the other Irish guys who had done it before, and also my coach, they said, like, if you eat the same food over and over again, you'll get sick. Your stomach will just go, no, we can't eat 20,000 calories of bread. That's not possible. So what you have to do is you have to keep going through all the different food types. So, pasta one thing, rice the next time, meat the next time, fruit the next time, bread the next time, something sweet the next time, etc., and just keep cycling through all the foods.
That is incredible. I'm mind blown right now, Dar.
So that was kind of it. Like I ate all the foods. I didn't specialize in anything, but they were all fairly simple foods. So, there was no ornate dishes in there. And because those were the competitive conditions of the 24-hour races, that was what I tended to eat when I was training as well. So that was what my stomach was used to. But even like running and digesting is very difficult, and it's not something that you do naturally. The very first time I ran for Ireland in a really long race, 100-kilometer race, I had a lot of problems on the day. But one of the biggest problems I had was just I wasn't used to running while my stomach was full. And I said it to my teammates afterwards. Like I said, I don't see how I get past this because I'm just not used to this. And they said, well, it's like everything else. You have to train it. So what you do is you get up in the morning, you eat the biggest breakfast you can possibly force into yourself, so to the point that you feel like you're almost bursting. And then you force yourself to go out and run for a couple of hours. And, the first 4, 5, 6 times I did that, I just felt incredibly sick and awful. But then afterwards, your body does actually go, okay, well, this is something we're doing now. We're eating a lot and then we're going running straight away. So it kind of overrides everything and it learns to do that.
That's incredible. I'm just in thorough shock right now. You doing that? Okay. Are you a picky eater?
I used to be. There were certain foods I just couldn't tolerate at all. Like I hated celery, and even a small bit of celery in a dish would set me off. And I had a few other bits of food like that, but I guess for the most part I wasn't picky in the sense that I would eat almost anything except a few specific foods I just didn't like and couldn't tolerate for whatever reason. But as I've gotten older, now I'll happily eat celery, and I actually don't think I have anything left that I won't eat. So I'm probably the very opposite of a picky eater in the sense that I'll eat almost anything. And when I go to Vegas, for example, for the WSOP, it would be difficult to eat my normal diet while I'm there, because my normal diet here is it's very Irish centric. It's meat, potatoes, fruits that you get here, etc., etc. So when I'm in Vegas, I tend to switch over to eating almost exclusively Asian food, because I find the Asian
Wow.
food in Vegas really good, and also healthy and not heavy, which I think is important. Like if you're playing a tournament, you don't necessarily want to eat a big steak and then go back and have to play. So I think I'm very versatile. Whenever I travel as well to anywhere in the world, I can pretty much eat the local food without getting upset. I'm not the kind of guy who, wherever he goes, he has to go to McDonald's. I'm quite happy to go native wherever I am. I've never really found anywhere that I've been that I've gone, no, I just can't take the local food.
That's awesome. All right, would you consider yourself a tilt eater?
Ooh, that's a good question. That is a good. Yeah. I guess I am. One thing we had a running joke in our group about bust out ice creams in Vegas.
Oh, yes.
Because when every year I've gone to Vegas, the World Series has been at the Rio, and for most of those years I've stayed across the road at the Gold Coast.
Okay.
Which is a much nicer but also cheaper hotel.
Ben
and
and
for
Jerry's.
years they had an amazing ice cream parlor. So I used to just get into a sort of a routine of when I bust a tournament and I was like feeling not very good, I'd walk across, I'd get a nice ice cream, I'd feel great, and then I was happy to go back and do the thing. But the problem in Vegas is you can bust 4 or 5 tournaments in a day, so you end up eating a lot of ice cream. That ice cream parlor isn't there anymore either. So, but I guess I still have that, particularly if it's sort of a disappointing bust out or it's a tournament that I was heavily emotionally invested in. I think my natural instinct immediately after busting is to go and get something nice that'll make me feel good, ice cream or chocolate or something like that.
Definitely. I asked that question to all the guests or the 3 guests that I've had on, and they absolutely like. I never thought about it, but I definitely am a tilt eater. Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy, and I'm a huge. My wife says I call her after I bust a tournament. Are you eating? She goes, "Oh, what happened?" And I said, and then I'll give her the whole story and give her the whole breakdown. So you're an ice cream, and you said chocolate and vanilla is your go-to?
chocolate ice cream. Yeah, I have a real weakness for dairy in general as well, like yogurts, cheese, anything that has milk in it. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to like it. Yeah, like even when I'm home, my wife does bug me that I eat far too many yogurts. I think that's kind of my go-to comfort food when I'm at home, a nice big pot of yogurt. But yeah, I don't have a sweet. I as a kid I had a sweet tooth because we ate a lot of sweets, but I think I got out of that as an adult.
Okay.
But I do have, I mean, anything with dairy, like cheese, chocolate, dairy chocolate, or yogurt. They're my comfort
That's
foods.
awesome. Yeah, I love it. I'm a huge. That's my go-to. Even at the Rio, I remember I would bust, and they would sometimes have the Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars, and I would just literally tilt, and then me ripping the wrapper off the ice cream. That was like my ugh, and I would just. I was like, that's it. All right, I feel better now. Now let me eat. Vice versa. Win a big tournament, have a big session. Are you going to go eat something and be like, I just crushed it. This is it.
Yeah, I found that less to be the case, because often I feel that, like, when you're in a big tournament, particularly a live tournament, there's so much focus and adrenaline and all that stuff swirling around, that even after the result, even if it's a very good result, sort of the tiredness suddenly hits you, and there's a big adrenaline dump, let's say, and I've never really sort of felt a strong desire to eat then. After some of my biggest results, I have gone for sort of celebration dinners with my closest friends, but they've tended to be very muted affairs where I'm just like, to be honest, I don't really feel like eating, but I guess I'm going to do it because that's what you do after you have a big win.
Kind of zone yourself out.
Yeah. But I think probably thinking about it, eating to comfort myself after something bad happens seems to be a much bigger factor for me than eating to reward myself after something good happens. Like my wife is obviously big into food, and when she cooks at home it's great, but she also likes to be brought out to the nicest restaurants in Dublin, and for her it's a sort of an occasion. Um, and it's similar to me. Like, I don't want it to be just because I won a big tournament, because I think I'll be quite low energy at that point anyway. I guess I'm the kind of guy that I'd probably be better off having a celebration dinner maybe a week later. And actually, we've done that a few times in our group. We've had not a celebration dinner, but a sort of a dinner at the end of the year to celebrate if we've had a good year. And I do enjoy those experiences much more, because it's a proper social occasion. You're kind of building up. We're going to go out. We're going to do this, rather than. Again, I think it kind of goes back to my running. Like, when I think about my running, even after I won a race, I was always just really tired because I'd given it every ounce of energy I possibly had. So pretty much all I wanted to do was crawl home and sleep, and curl up in bed. And it's a bit the same in a poker tournament. Like, when I'm in a big live tournament, it's it feels exactly the same as when I was in a big race. Everything is focused on that. The rest of the world just disappears, and it's 100% focus, and then it's over, and that sort of switches off and diffuses. But you suddenly kind of realize now how much you put into it and how much energy went into it. So I think my first instinct is always to sleep, and then maybe after I sleep, I'll wake up hungry and then eat.
You go from there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you a snacker at the table or during breaks during your tournaments?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad on that stuff. And I think, well, maybe I'm using this as an excuse, but for my running days, it was very important, as I say, to keep eating constantly rather than in big chunks. So grazing, as we called it, was super important to keep your energy levels up, keep your blood sugar levels up when you're running for very long distances. Now, there's no real reason for me to be doing that anymore. But one thing I've noticed is if I'm fairly early in a poker tournament, so I'm giving it like good focus, but not maximum focus. It's not the same kind of focus as you would have on a final table or a few tables out. But when I'm in that state, I do get hungry. So what I usually do is I bring healthy snacks, like bananas or small sandwiches or whatever, to the fruit in general, which I can graze on if I do get hungry. Whereas when we come towards the end of a tournament, it seems to be the opposite. Just food goes out the window. I don't think about it at all, and I'm really just thinking about everything I need to think about in the tournament. And yeah, so that's the live experience. Online is a bit different because my online sessions, because I'm a tournament player, tend to be quite long. My Sunday can be anything from 12 to 16 hours, and you're only getting 5-minute breaks in every hour in that period. So you don't really have time to eat a full proper meal. So the best thing to do is to just keep grazing. So I'll eat fairly regularly, but small amounts through the period. But I guess that's a function of just the fact that you're sitting at the computer and you're actually burning a lot of calories as well. Like, people don't realize just how much the brain burns, but it really does. Like, the brain is the only organ in the body that can only function on carbs. The brain can't burn fat at all. It can only burn glucose, essentially, which is why when you're running for 24 hours, you have to keep taking in carbs, because if you don't take in the carbs, the brain will actually shut down.
That's incredible.
And the wall that people talk about in marathons, what that actually is carb depletion affecting the brain, and the brain sort of panicking and trying to shut everything down. When you are making decisions, as you are as a poker player, even as a non player, every decision burns a certain amount of calories in the brain. So the same sort of considerations apply. You have to keep your glucose levels up.
That is, yeah, no, definitely. And thinking about that, when I play Sundays, it's, if I don't plan, or if I'm running deep and my wife's like, what are we going to eat? What are we going to, and I'm like, you know what? I have to plan better. So I like the fact that you're saying, snack here, have stuff ready to snack on throughout the entire day. That's something good for anyone listening that's just coming up and starting to play. Poker it can get long. It can be long days, and Dara made a good point about keeping the brain fed, and that's so true.
Yeah, often you see people make mistakes either towards the end of a session or towards the end of a live tournament, if it's the case, and that's sometimes put down to tiredness. But I often wonder how much of that is just carb depletion on the brain, where if they had snacked throughout the day, they wouldn't necessarily have hit the same sort of brain fog at that point. And you know this yourself from playing online. Your most important decisions are the ones towards the end of your session, not towards the start of your session. That's where you really want to be playing your best. If you make a big mistake at that point, it could cost you several multiples of a buy-in. Whereas a mistake early on in a tournament is only going to cost you a fraction of a buy-in. So it's kind of difficult in the sense that when you're at your freshest at the start of your session and everything is firing, your decisions, while important, are less important than later on. But when you're at your most tired and depleted and decision fatigued, that's when your decisions really, really matter. And I think you kind of have to approach it the way elite athletes do. Elite athletes think about what do I need to take in at different points of a race to make sure that when we get to the end of the race, I'm not just going to run out of steam. And I think poker players also need the same considerations, even though, when you say that to non-poker people, they go, what are you talking about? You're just sitting at a table throwing cards away. There is no energy there, but there is, like, the brain uses a lot of power.
Definitely. Okay, we're gonna go back to the WSOP. During your dinner breaks, what are you a big, hey, let's all get together, let's go eat, or are you more of a let me go have a snack, sit by myself, gather my thoughts kind of guy?
Category A. For me, the WSOP is always a chance to meet people that I don't see the rest of the year. Now, I don't tend to go into a big grouping setting because, well, apart from anything else, it takes longer to get served if there's 20 of you than if there's 3 or 4 of you. So what I tend to do is I try and catch up with everybody that I want to catch up while I'm at the WSOP. So I'll send one day I know I'm playing the same tournament to, say, Maria Konnikova, and I'll send Maria a message saying, "Are you free for dinner?" And it'll either just be the two of us or maybe 2 or 3 other people, but not a really big group. And that way I get the whole socialization aspect crammed into my WSOP experience, which is very important because I never want to come to the end of the trip and think, well, I just played poker and I didn't catch up with any of the people that I really would have enjoyed catching up with. But the reality is, when you're there at something like the WSOP, you're there to play. So you're going to be playing most days. And even if you decide to take a day off, it's very unlikely all your friends are taking that day off as well. So you'll end up just sitting, you'd end up just sitting staring at the walls of your room, going, maybe this wasn't the day to take off. So your best chance to socialize with people is literally on breaks and dinner breaks in particular. So I do tend to use those to scratch that itch.
That is awesome. Are you excited about the move from the Rio to Bally's?
I was actually, cardschat were asking me about this. I think a mixture of excitement and trepidation is probably the answer. Never a big fan of the Rio, I have to say, but it was the only place where I ever, since I started going to the WSP, I'm not in poker long enough for it to ever be in the horseshoe for me. It was always the Rio. So all of my WSP memories and experiences are tied up in the Rio. So even though I didn't particularly like the Rio, there's a kind of a nostalgia now that I know that that's gone forever, and that'll, I guess, associated with that. I'm also not a massive fan of the Strip, I have to say. I've never really spent much time on the Strip, never really enjoyed it as an experience. I kind of liked the fact that it used to be off Strip, so it was easier to get to. You weren't competing with all the rest of the Strip traffic to come in and out of the place. Yeah, and for food, at food breaks. So I'm intrigued to see how that's all going to work out. I hope they put a lot of thought into what it's going to be like when 5,000 people are coming out at the end of day 1A of Colossus at the same time, all looking for an Uber or a taxi. But I fear they won't.
So I've actually done some research because this guy needs to eat. I need my food. So there's a lot more food options available that are walking distance and would save people tremendous amount of time. in all directions. So
Oh
I
wow.
think the food, they have a food court at Bally's.
Yeah.
They have 3 decently sized restaurants at the Paris, which is connected to the Bally's, right? And then if
Yeah.
you go across the way to Caesars, they have a food court.
Yeah.
So there's a plethora of options. It's you're gonna have to walk a little bit, but I think it'll be better in the sense of having to wait for an Uber, a cab,
Yeah.
anything like that. So that's something that I to everybody. I think I'm a big guy. I don't miss many meals, so I got to make sure I'm eating. So I want to make sure when I went for the circuit event, I scoped the whole place out, and I got the lowdown and made sure I knew what places were where and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, and definitely I think it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be interesting to see what they come up with to fulfill a lot of the tourist stuff and stuff like that for the summer.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and getting that information out to players, I think, would be a big service as well. Because I think a lot of players are just like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I just try and figure it out when I get over there. But if people are aware that they're not necessarily restricted to Bally's, that there are good options within walking distance, I think that will greatly benefit things. I mean, the last thing we want is 5,000 people hitting the
Oh,
food court in Bally's at the same time. So. Uh, and obviously, the food options in the Rio were never very good.
no, not at all. The
the-
cafeteria alone was terrible.
Yeah, yeah, everything there was pretty bad. I mean, that's why we used to go across to the Gold Coast. That they had better food options across the road. And you know that was maybe the fact that we're trained to knowing that you can actually walk out of the property where it is into another property that's nearby and get better food options. Maybe we'll be we're ready to take on the Bally's experience.
Definitely, definitely. All right, you talked about real quick about going out sometimes in Dublin with your wife. What are your go-to spots? Like if you had to choose somewhere, like if I'm going for the first time, you're going to tell me, Leo, this is where you need to eat when you come here. Where are we going?
There's a couple of very good restaurants. There's one not far from us, which used to be purely a pub, but it hasn't is now essentially just a restaurant with that still serves alcohol, called Angler's Rest. It's in a very picturesque part of Dublin. It's preserved as a beauty area because it's a natural valley. So
Wow, that's awesome.
they're prevented from development there. So you literally feel like you're in the countryside, even though you're actually in the city. Very nice setting by the main river. Lots of trees and greenery around. The bar itself, or the establishment itself, the Angler's Rest, is a really beautiful place. It has a sense of history to it as well, and the food is really good. So that's my wife's favorite place. I think partly because it's quite near as well. So it's not a long drive. But there are lots of really good restaurants in Dublin, and another one that we go to quite a lot, which is near where our son lives in the center of the city, is called Locks, and
Okay.
that's by one of the canals in Dublin. So again, it's quite a nice setting, but the food is really good there. There's another restaurant that we like in Ballsbridge called Rollies, which is a French bistro, but it's again really high quality food. That's one of the things which has changed massively over my lifetime. Like I said, when I grew up in Ireland, food wasn't important, and that was very much the case. But Irish people have come to appreciate food much better now. So when Dublin, while not quite on a par with somewhere like London when it comes to food options, it's not that far off, to be honest.
Really, that's awesome.
Yeah, and even when you go to small towns in Ireland now, even a small town with only a few thousand people will probably have 3 or 4 really good restaurants. And actually, one thing I meant to say about food was I was in Malta a couple of years ago, and we had an Italian guy who was cooking for us, and he was an amazing cook, and he cooked amazing food. And he asked where we were from, and we said, "Oh, we're from Ireland." And he said, "Oh, Ireland, that's such a good place for food." I was surprised. I was like, well, "Why does he think it's a good place for food? Like we don't," as I said, we don't have world famous Irish cuisine. And he said, "Well, the thing that makes Ireland great is just the food is so natural. The meat is all grass fed, There's no
Some good
factory
stuff.
farming, and it's particularly lush grass as well because of the climate. The 40 shades of green cliche is actually true. You do see 40 shades of green. And he said the meat is just so good compared to everywhere else that he had ever eaten meat.
Wow, that is awesome. That's cool
Yeah.
to hear.
So he said that he was just salivating at the thought of going to Ireland and eating meat. Because he said it tastes so much better than everywhere else in the world. Ireland's a terrible place, obviously, to be vegetarian or vegan, given
with all the cheeses and meats there. I can't.
Yeah,
wait.
but apparently our meat and our cheeses as well are fairly sensational. We've become genuinely world class in that. Like, we make some French style cheeses now that even the French kind of grudgingly admit are at least as good or maybe better than most of their cheese. And again, that just comes from the natural approach to farming here, where cows are out in the field, they're eating grass, and that does actually transmit into how the meat tastes. And then the same for the vegetables. The vegetables are all natural, like they're not grown in greenhouses or anywhere. They're actually grown
outside. Yeah,
in the
definitely.
wild, and therefore they taste natural. They taste that much better. And for him, he was saying that really is the key to what makes Ireland really good for food, just the natural ingredients. And came back and it did give me a new appreciation, because now when we go to our favorite restaurants and you order a steak or chicken or anything, and you do go, yeah, this does actually taste better than the stuff we had in those other places.
That is so cool. Now I think I'm booking a flight as soon as we get out of here. I mean, you're talking my language. Definitely talking my language. Okay, we have a little section called Calling the Clock segment. This is our segment. I'm going to rapid fire you questions, and then if you take too long, I'm going to call the clock on you.
Okay.
All right. Some of these are so the Irish. It's going to be interesting. I'm glad we're doing it. I'm going to keep the questions the same. I'm not going to tailor them. So here we go. Favorite type of potato chip?
Salt and vinegar.
Okay. Favorite type of sandwich?
Tuna.
Oh no. You were up here, Dara. Now you're just on the slow decline with the tuna. Favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Grapefruit juice.
Very classy. Favorite adult beverage?
Red wine.
Favorite type of beer?
Guinness. I'd be run out of Ireland if I didn't say Guinness. So
yeah, I was going to say that was a rhetorical question. I knew the answer. Do you drink coffee?
I drink coffee, yeah.
What's your favorite type?
Flat white.
Explain, because people here don't. Flat white, what is that?
It's a latte with I think 2 espresso shots in it.
Okay, all right, I like it. Favorite type of pizza?
Ham and mushroom.
Ham and mushroom.
Very basic.
Oh, yeah. Favorite type of crust on your pizza?
Oh, the thick one, whichever one that one's called.
Okay, so there's a place, real quick. There's a place right outside Bally's called Giordano's, Chicago style pizza, top of the line.
That sounds absolutely perfect.
I mean, top of the line. They do a mushroom pepperoni that is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's literally right outside. You can walk. It's like a 4 or 5 minute walk.
Right. That sounds absolutely perfect.
So you definitely got to try that out. Okay, this is one. I don't know if you ever had either one of these: Chick-fil-A or Popeyes.
No, I've never had either of those, unfortunately.
Okay, so Chick-fil-A is like a staple here in the U.S. I'm gonna find you. There's a Chick-fil-A now on the Strip. It's huge. They make so much money and they're closed every Sunday. They crush it. So this summer I'm taking you to Chick-fil-A.
Okay, cool.
All right, you're gonna love it. Okay, how do you like your steak?
Medium. I used to only eat steak well done, and I got absolutely pilloried by my podcast co-host saying, like, you're just burning it. That's terrible. So I've managed to go all the way to mediums. Sometimes I'll do medium rare. He eats it blue if he's allowed to.
Really?
But yeah, medium rare. My wife is the same. She thinks I'm a Philistine because she only eats it rare, like every other French person.
That is insane. Okay. This is another one. Favorite fast food burger?
In-N-Out.
Okay, all right. I enjoy it. I like it. I can dig that. Tater tots or fries?
Fries.
Favorite chocolate candy?
I don't know if you guys have it, but we have a candy called Maltesers,
Hmm,
which
I
is
haven't.
basically like a honeycomb coated in chocolate.
Oh, that sounds really good, actually. Favorite non-chocolate candy?
Skittles, I guess. I don't think there's any chocolate. Or is there chocolate in Skittles? Maybe there is.
No, that's M&Ms. You're thinking M&Ms. They look at really identical,
You're right.
but
Yeah.
Skittles
Yeah.
are so good. And
Yeah.
now they're branching out and doing sour and all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, this next question I've gotten heat for because I your favorite brand of water. I'm just gonna ask it.
Ballygowan, which is an Irish brand.
Is it good? Because I love Irish water. I know
Yeah.
it sounds random,
Yeah. No,
but I
Irish water
love.
is great. Again, same thing, just natural, unpolluted country. So a lot of the stuff here, they don't have to do anything to make it taste good. They literally just have to pull it out of the ground and I guess get rid of the mud. But everything else is good.
So yeah, I'm a huge water guy. So I definitely that sounds. I'm gonna look for it on Amazon, try to get it. But yeah, I'm a huge water, and everyone always says, "Oh, it's just water." It's not just water. Y'all don't understand. Like
Yeah.
Irish water is so good. Okay, here we go. Chips Ahoy or Oreos?
Again, those are kind of American things, but I've eaten Oreos, so I guess I'll go with
The
Oreos.
Oreos. Okay. Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Oh, hot coffee, definitely. I don't understand iced coffee.
Is it a thing in Ireland though?
What is this thing? Yeah, it's same. First time I ever even had iced tea was in America, and I was like, "What do you mean iced tea? How
Are
can
you
that be a thing?"
serious?
Yeah, yeah.
That
It
is
was like we
hilarious.
only drink it hot, pretty much.
Wow, that is incredible. Okay. Sports drinks, Gatorade, Powerade. Do y'all
Yeah, we
have
have those. Yeah, I did actually drink quite a lot of Gatorade when I was not an ultra runner, but a marathon runner.
favorite food? I mean favorite flavor, I'm sorry.
Chocolate.
Favorite flavor of Gatorade.
Oh, favorite. Oh, of Gatorade. I didn't realize there were different ones. I think we might only have one. We don't tend to get the same number of options as you guys do.
Okay. Big question. Egg roll or spring roll?
Spring roll.
Wow, everyone has said spring roll. That's incredible. I'm a spring roll guy too. I thought I was the only spring roll guy. I thought everyone was an egg roll type of person. Okay. Coke or Pepsi?
Not big on either, but I guess I'll go with Pepsi.
Okay. This is favorite vegetable.
I'm going to be really boring and just go potato.
It's not. I'm a huge potato guy. Okay.
I love potatoes. Yeah,
They're so good. Bacon or sausage?
bacon.
Do you have a favorite fast food sandwich? Like a place? Like Jersey Mike's, Subway, Quiznos.
Mm, to be honest, I don't like any of the ones that I've been in. I'm trying to think if there are gourmet ones here. Pret a Porter, I guess they do sandwiches.
Okay.
Like I genuinely don't like Subway. In fact, even the smell of Subway just puts me off. I don't know what it is about
Oh,
Subway, but the smell just drives me.
someone told me the exact same thing. And it's like a combination of like they do everything in one spot. Like they cook the bread in one spot. They do so it's kind of like this. I think the aura of it is kind of it's out there.
It possibly is. One thing I noticed when I was training for ultra running is I had to go out in 4 or 5 mile runs, and towards the end of a run, you got really really hungry. And one thing that happens when you're really hungry is your sense of smell gets really really keen to food. So I could
Really?
literally smell a McDonald's that was 2 miles away. But the thing that always the first thing that I would start smelling was the Subway, which again was like 2 miles away. But I would, it's almost
Are you
like you turn into a
serious?
feral dog. It's like food, food, food. There's food that way. And Subway was always the first thing I smelled. Yeah.
That is incredible. All right, you did well. No calling the clock so far. No one has had it. So, one more quick little section. We call this the bad beat segment. And let me explain. So, I run extremely bad at restaurants. Like the service I've had at restaurants is
Oh, that sucks.
so bad.
That
Like
sucks.
I have I've ordered meals and meals and I get home, I open the bag, there's no dressing, there's no fork, there's nothing. Or I'll go to a restaurant with a group of people. Everyone orders their food. I'm the first one to order. Everyone gets their food, everyone's eating, and they forget my meal.
Yeah.
So I need to know: has Dara Kearney ever experienced a bad beat at a restaurant?
Oh yeah, I certainly have. I've had those. You order the food first, and suddenly everybody around you has the food, and you don't have it. I do remember once in Vegas going out with a couple of friends of mine, and we ordered. The food was really good. It was a good Italian place, and we had whiskeys afterwards. And then the bill came, and they were charging us. I think it was $6 for each glass of ice, or each cube of ice cube.
Are you kidding?
And we were like, what is this? And they would say, well, we asked if you wanted ice cubes. And we were like, yeah, well, we want ice in our whiskey, but we didn't expect we were going to be charged $6 for each cube. And
Oh
it
no, that
developed
is
into a huge, big
incredible.
argument. The people I was with were very stubborn. They were like, we are not paying for this ice. And
Wow.
the restaurant were going, you are definitely paying for this ice. This is completely standard. And eventually the compromise, for want of a better word, it was like, okay, well, we're paying for the ice, but we're not leaving a tip. So it's going to come out the same anyway.
That is incredible. I've never heard of that. Okay, you have officially taken over the lead as the worst bad beat at a restaurant. That's tilting. Do y'all play credit card roulette? Are you a big credit card roulette kind of guy?
I'm lifetime banned, self-excluded from credit card roulette because I run so bad at that. I think I lost the first 11 that I did, and I think if you work out the cumulative odds of that happening, it's running into the millions to one. And every time I would come back from a trip, my wife would say, "What's this charge?" And I would say, "Oh yeah, we were out one night and we did credit card roulette, and I obviously lost again." So yeah, that's what that's what that is. So it reached the point where she said, "You're not allowed to do that anymore." I can't hear you anymore, Leo. I think you might be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I got disconnected. So my wife literally gets sick when we're all there eating, and we go out with the couples or all our friends, and we gamble. She absolutely trembles, like she hates it. It's crazy because it there's like before I was doing well in poker and doing everything, I would still do it, but I wasn't a bit. I didn't have the bankroll I did now. So she was like, "Babe, do you have to play?" I was like, yeah, you kind of do, because you don't want to be that guy, and then you don't want to be the, hey, I'll take my tickets separate. They're gonna play a cool game, but we're not. You know what I mean? So yeah, so definitely. Let me see. Okay, people are asking who are your favorite poker players coming up when you started the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it was probably just the old reliables like Negreanu, Helmut, those guys. I think one of the very first poker books I bought, and I wouldn't recommend this for anyone, but it was by Phil Helmut, and it was called. It was an abridged version of Play Poker Like the Pros. It was the book that had all the different player types compared to animals. That was the main thing, and also just it was like fold everything that isn't sevens or ace queen or better. So it was probably actually reasonable advice for the time.
At the time, definitely. I remember reading that and I was like, okay, I can use some of this info.
Yeah, poker's really easy. Just look at the chart. No, that's not one of the hands. I guess I fold. But yeah, so I didn't really admire those guys. I think with the benefit of hindsight, I kind of look back now and think, well, people often say, oh, they were great characters back then, etc., etc. But really, it was just kind of TV hyped them up.
For sure.
There was so much money in poker, and they needed television always has this requirement for narrative and character. So even if they don't exist, they'll invent them, and they'll say, "Oh, this is Phil Helmut. He says mad things when he gets annoyed because he's lost a flip." And this is Daniel Negreanu. He talks all the time, and he can tell you exactly what two cards you're holding. And that's how poker was marketed. And now there's not the same incentives. And poker's just not as much on TV. So, like in many ways, I think the people now there are probably more interesting characters around poker now than there were at the time. But that's not the popular perspective. And I certainly bought into the whole, "Oh, these guys are great characters, and this makes them really good poker players."
Definitely, I agree with you. It's evolved so much now, and there's so much more that goes into being a professional poker player. And I think you are the perfect example of what a poker pro should be, and and how they should handle themselves on the felt, off the felt, and the way you communicate with you're a class act, and I truly mean that. And it was This was one of my favorite podcasts. I've only done 4, but it was so enlightening just to hear. First of all, your accent. I mean, if I had to talk, I'm getting an accent. I think I'm gonna start talking with an accent starting today. But just in general, the knowledge you can you can see it and hear it how passionate you are about this. So what's next for you? Where can we see you? What can we expect? What are we gonna do? Tell everyone.
Yeah, I have a couple of live events coming up before Vegas, and then obviously we got across to the WSOP at the very last minute last year. We thought that the travel restrictions wouldn't be lifted in time, and then they were lifted just in time. So we kind of got across for the last week or two,
Okay.
and that was a nice bonus because we weren't expecting to go last year. And it was a fun trip, and I made it. I made a final table right at the end too, so that felt like a real bonus. It was something which I wasn't expecting. This year, the WSP is obviously back in force, and it's going to be at a new venue, which I think will make it kind of special in a way as well. People are going to remember this one because it was the first one at Bally's or the Horseshoe or whatever they're actually going to be calling it on the day. And I'm there for longer as well, so it feels more like a return to the WSOPs that I went to before. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to live poker the next few months. Still working on the 4th book with Barry, and also we're working on a webinar I'm going to do on mystery bounties. I think mystery bounties are going to become very big over the next year or two, both live and online. And I put a lot of thought into what the strategy adjustments are for mystery bounties. So I'm excited to hopefully be finishing that up soon. And yeah, I mean, doing all the other stuff that I normally do too, the coaching, the writing, and the podcast with David. It feels like we've all sort of been entombed for the last 18 months, 2 years because of
Letting it
lockdown.
all out.
And now we're all coming out again, and
for sure.
and with a new appreciation for it as well. I mean, that was really clear at the Irish Open. Nobody was taking anything for granted anymore. It was like, this is actually really good to be able to get out and experience live poker again. And any jadedness that was there before is long gone now, and people are genuinely appreciative and not taking for granted the fact that we get to play live poker. Everything ends, and without getting too morbid, you don't want to think about that, but you do still want to appreciate it while you can do it, because it will end at some point.
Definitely. And I think that this is just the beginning. I think the poker is going to be booming after the WSOP. The hype, all that stuff is just going to take off. And I think what you do for it, what you bring to the table, what you offer is so great. And I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for giving us. I mean, I learned so much about myself, about poker, about you, just in this podcast. And I hope people definitely can gain some knowledge about something, or see this and be inspired to go play, because I'm all about growing the game. So you have a fan in me, my wife, my family, Brownsville, Texas. You're definitely we're rooting for you very hard. I'm gonna do a giveaway because we got to 100 subscribers earlier. So I'm gonna do a giveaway. I'm gonna give away one of your books. I'm gonna give a hat. I'm gonna give a patch and a gift card. So I just want to let you know. So if you can retweet this after I post it, and if we get to 500 views, I will donate $200 to a charity of your choice. You let me know.
Oh wow.
Whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, thanks a lot, Leo. Very kind of you to say that, and I've really enjoyed this chat. I have to say, this has been a lot of fun for me. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Vegas and hanging out in person. It's always great to meet people who have a genuine passion for the game, and are looking to communicate that passion and let the world know what's so great about poker. Because poker gets a lot of bad stick, and obviously there are negative sides to it. And at the moment, a lot of that stuff is in sharp focus. But the reality is, poker is a massive positive for the vast majority of people who play it, and that's what we should try to get more focus onto.
Definitely. I'm gonna have shirts made now that say Tilt Eater, and I'm gonna have a cool little design. So I'm gonna start passing them out to everyone. So I'll definitely get you one of those when I see you this summer. And I can't wait. It's gonna be great. I can't wait to break some bread with you and enjoy some laughs. Dara, I appreciate you coming on. All right. You have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thanks a lot, Leo.
Take care. Bye.
Good luck.
Bye. All right, everybody. I got this new layout, so I'm gonna hold on. Let me Take it off now. Hide. All right, there we go. So funny story, real quick before I sign off. Um, I was at Tunica, Mississippi, and I was playing live poker tournament, and one of the guys in the tournament was looking at the podcast and says, "Man, dude, you've lost some weight since you started the podcast." I was like, "Oh, what episode are you on?" He's like, "Oh, uh, April 22nd." I was like, "Dude, that was 7 days ago. I haven't lost any weight." So I want everyone to know right now that the camera adds 10 to 20 pounds at least. I look way skinnier in person. So that was a great story. Everyone at the table laughed. I laughed. It was hilarious. So that was really, 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 really good. And so going forward, I'll be having Norman Chad on next Friday. We'll have another guest on next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm still working out the details on that, but next Friday we have Norman Chad coming on. Um, Following that, I'll have um, some pre-recorded podcasts. I will be out of town before the WSOP with the family, clear our head, clear our mind. So we will be doing that, and then I come back and we head to Vegas for the summer. I do plan on having live podcasts from the WSOP. Hopefully, have some food there for our guests. So that's the plan. I appreciate so much getting to 100 subscribers. I look forward to the next 100. I'm going to post this on Twitter, on Instagram. We're going to do the giveaway. I'm going to give away one of his books, a hat, a patch, all that good stuff. So show some love. Go follow Aces Full of Food on all platforms, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all the viewers, all the listeners, all the questions, all the communication. So for all the guests, I can't wait. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy doing this podcast. It's so much fun. I didn't know how much fun it was going to be. So for all the love, all the support you all give, my wife, she's amazing. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. You all are the best. Till next time, may all your orders be correct, and may all your flush draws get there. Leo Samaripa, I'm out. See you all next week.